needed. Thousands of them. We need air. Support now. HQ, Naval Company, requesting urgent CS. Retire Chile. Over. We can't hold out any longer. Myla, stay with me. Hold the line.
Air support inbound. ETA 6 minutes. Danger close. Mark your position. Air support inbound.
Close air support inbound! Fall back now, all units!
Stop! Don't shoot, please!
Red, no! Stay back!
Jack, please stay with me.
Seven days ago, November 1950, Chosin Reservoir. Winter descended on this mountain plateau like a blade. 30 below zero. The kind of cold that froze a man's breath into icicles on his beard. That welded rifle steel to bare skin and tore it away bloody. Two worlds were colliding here. From the north, 120,000 Chinese soldiers of the People's Volunteer Army pushed south. Bugles blaring through the frozen dark. From the south, 30,000 UN troops advanced north under different flags, different gods, different dreams of what the world should be. Jack Miller stood in the middle of it all. 22 years old, 1st Marine Division, 5th Regiment. Private, serial number 19,274,856. A year ago, he'd been working his grandfather's farm in Iowa. Hands deep in black soil. Not blood. War don't make heroes, his grandfather had told him. The day the draft notice came. It just makes the living and the dead. The old man would know. He'd come back from the first war different, quieter. Sometimes Jack would wake in the night and hear him downstairs, pacing, muttering to ghosts only he could see. Now Jack understood. The wind screamed across the ridgeline, driving snow horizontal. Each flake a tiny knife. Against exposed skin, Jack's platoon was dug into a hillside above the frozen reservoir, waiting for what? Nobody seemed quite sure. Orders changed by the hour. Advance. Hold. Advance again. Around him, Marines huddled in shallow foxholes, their breath coming in white clouds that vanished instantly in the gale. Some whispered prayers, some cleaned weapons for the third time that hour. Finding comfort in the familiar ritual, some just stared into the white void, already halfway to wherever men go. When the cold gets inside them, Jack did what he always did when fear crept too close. He thought about home. The farm would be quiet now. Harvest long done. Grandpa would be in the barn, checking on the cattle. Mom would be in the kitchen, radio playing softly, probably saying a rosary for her firstborn son fighting in a war she couldn't find on a map. His kid brother Tommy would be doing Jack's old chores, feeding the chickens, splitting wood, dreaming of the day he'd be old enough to escape the farm like Jack had. Except Jack hadn't escaped anything. He'd just traded one kind of cold for another. Miller, the sergeant's voice cut through his thoughts. Sir, you're on watch. 2 hours. Keep your eyes open and your ass down. Yes, sir. Jack crawled to the forward position, rifle cradled against his chest to keep the mechanism from freezing solid. The M1 Garand was a good weapon, usually, but out here, metal became brittle as glass. Lubricant turned to paste. Men had died because their rifles wouldn't fire when it mattered. He settled into the hole, brushing away snow. that immediately began to accumulate again. Before him, the land dropped away into darkness. Somewhere out there, the Chinese were moving. You could feel them, even if you couldn't see them. A pressure in the air, a sense of being watched by 1,000 invisible eyes. Jack had killed his first man 3 weeks ago. He tried not to think about it, tried not to remember the way the body had fallen, arms flung wide like a man diving into water. Tried not to wonder if that soldier had a grandfather waiting for him too. But the memory came anyway, the way they all did eventually. The living and the dead, all mixed together in his head. Nations fight wars, Grandpa had said, but people just try to survive them. Jack was beginning to understand the difference. Same hour, 10 miles north, Li Rin sat in the back of a lurching truck, one hand braced against the wooden slats, the other pressed to the medical texts in her bag, as if they might escape. 21 years old, People's Volunteer, Army, 9th Army Group, Medical Corpsman, no serial number. Women weren't supposed to be soldiers, so they weren't officially counted as such, but here she was anyway. The truck bed was crowded with wounded men, moaning softly or not at all. 7 of them, bandaged and broken. 2 other nurses, one driver who kept glancing at the sky like a man expecting judgment. Rin had volunteered for this, crossed the Yalu River, with songs in her heart, and her father's medical books in her pack, believing she was part of something larger than herself. The revolution, the future, a world where no one would be left behind. 3 months later, she believed in smaller things, clean bandages, morphine when she could get it, the difference between a wound that would heal and one that wouldn't. She'd learned to tell just by looking. The boy beside her, and he was a boy, maybe 16, wasn't going to make it to the field hospital. The stomach wound had gone septic. She could smell it even in the freezing air, a sweet rot smell. That meant the body was already surrendering. Sister, he whispered in Chinese, am I going to be okay? Rin looked into eyes that trusted her completely. Yes, she lied, the way she'd learned to lie, kindly. Just rest. We'll be there soon. He smiled and closed his eyes. Rin pulled her coat tighter, though it did little good. The cold out here was something else. Not the winter she'd known in Pyongyang, where she'd grown up, in her father's house, reading his medical journals by candlelight, learning English from textbooks, because he'd told her, a doctor must speak the language of pain, no matter whose pain it is. Her father was dead now, purged in one of the campaigns, denounced as a bourgeois intellectual who'd served the Japanese occupation. Rin had thought if she fought for the revolution, his death might mean something. She wasn't sure anymore what anything meant. The English textbooks were still in her bag, though. Even here, even now, she'd read them so many times. She could recite whole passages from memory, anatomy, pathology, surgical technique, and scattered throughout the strange, blunt words of the language. Her father had loved. Medicine has no borders, he used to say. She'd thought he meant it had no politics. Maybe he'd meant something else. Comrade nurse, the other woman, older, touched her arm. Look. Rin followed her gaze upward. Aircraft, dark shapes against the gray sky, flying low. American bombers. Driver, Rin shouted, stop the truck. Everyone out, but the driver had already seen them. He wrenched the wheel, trying to pull off the narrow mountain road. The truck skidded, fishtail-ed, and then the world became sound and light. The first bomb hit 20 meters ahead, turning the road into a crater. The blast wave caught the truck broadside and flipped it like a toy. Rin felt herself flying. Strange how time slowed. She could see individual snowflakes suspended in the air, could hear her heartbeat, impossibly loud, could think with perfect clarity, this is how I die. She hit the snow hard enough to drive the air from her lungs. For a moment she couldn't breathe, couldn't move. Then pain flooded in her left leg. Something very wrong there. Her head ringing, blood warm against the cold. More explosions, the truck burning, screams cut short. Rin tried to stand, managed to get to her knees. before her leg gave out, and she collapsed again. She looked down. Bad. Very bad. Shrapnel had torn through her thigh, and blood was pulsing out into the white snow, turning it crimson. She pressed her hands to the wound, but they were shaking too badly to do much good. Pressure, elevation, tourniquet. The words came automatically, her training trying to save her, even as her body failed. But her medical bag was gone, scattered somewhere in the burning wreckage. Rin felt the cold creeping in, not the surface cold of winter, but something deeper, the cold that came from the inside. When the body began to shut down, pulling warmth away from the extremities to protect the core. She'd seen it happen to others. Now it was her turn. Not like this, she whispered in English, the language of her father. I'm supposed to save people. Not like this. The snow fell softly, beginning to cover her. She heard something. Footsteps. Voices speaking a language that wasn't Chinese. English. Americans. Rin tried to reach for a weapon. She didn't have. Managed only to raise her head slightly. Through the snow and smoke, a shape approached. A soldier. Young. Rifle raised. Their eyes met. And in that moment, everything Rin had been taught about enemies, about Americans, about who deserved to live, and who deserved to die, collided with something simpler. She was dying. He was there. And the choice of what happened next wasn't hers to make. The soldier stood over her, weapon pointed at her head, finger on the trigger. Time stopped. Snow fell, and Li Rin waited to see if this was how her story would end. Jack saw the smoke first. Black column rising against the gray sky, maybe half a click east. His sergeant was already scanning it through field glasses. Airstrike got something, the sergeant muttered. Probably a supply convoy. Want me to check it out? Jack heard himself ask. The sergeant lowered the glasses, gave him a look. What for? Survivors, sir. Intelligence. It was a thin excuse. They both knew it, but something pulled at Jack. Maybe curiosity, maybe boredom, maybe just the need to do something other than freeze in a hole waiting for an enemy that came and went like smoke. The sergeant considered it. Take Wilson and Hayes. 15 minutes. You're not back by then, we're not coming for you. Understood. 3 of them moved out, hunched low, weapons ready. The snow was deep enough to slow them down, and the wind covered their approach. Wilson took point, Hayes the rear. Jack stayed in the middle, trying to ignore the voice in his head that sounded like his grandfather. Don't go looking for trouble, boy. It'll find you soon enough. The crash site came into view through the swirling snow. Chinese truck, blown to hell. Bodies scattered. Jack had seen enough of them by now to know what a direct hit looked like. Most of these poor bastards hadn't felt a thing. Jesus, Wilson breathed. Spread out, Jack said quietly. Check for survivors. Watch for weapons. They moved through the wreckage carefully. You never knew. Sometimes the wounded ones were the most dangerous, hopped up on fear and adrenaline, liable to take you with them even as they bled out. Jack circled wide, rifle up, finger on the trigger but not squeezing. The Marine Corps had trained that reflex into him until it was automatic. Never put your finger on the trigger unless you meant to destroy what you were aiming at. That's when he saw her. Half buried in snow, maybe 20 feet from the burning truck. A woman. Young. Chinese medical uniform, or what was left of it. Blood everywhere. She wasn't moving. Jack approached slowly, weapon ready. Could be a trap. Could be. Her eyes opened. For a moment, they just stared at each other. She was maybe his age. Dark eyes, huge in a pale face. Black hair matted with snow and blood. And on her face, an expression Jack couldn't quite read. Not fear, not hatred, something else. Acceptance, maybe, like she'd been expecting this. Jack's training kicked in automatically. Enemy combatant. Possible threat. Secure the target. He raised his rifle, clicked off the safety. The metallic sound seemed impossibly loud in the quiet after the bombs. Standard procedure was clear. Enemy wounded were to be disarmed and secured for intelligence purposes. If they couldn't walk, you called for a litter team. If the tactical situation didn't permit evacuation, you moved on. Nobody had ever quite spelled out what you did if the enemy was bleeding out in front of you. The woman's lips moved. At first, Jack thought she was speaking Chinese. Then the words resolved into something impossible. I won't fight you. English. Accented, but clear. Jack's finger tightened on the trigger. This was wrong. Chinese soldiers didn't speak English. Definitely not dying ones in the middle of nowhere. I save lives, she continued, each word an obvious effort. That's all I do. Her hand moved, and Jack tensed. But she was just gesturing weakly at the Red Cross armband on her torn sleeve. Medical personnel. Non-combatant. Theoretically. Miller. Wilson's shout from somewhere behind him. Got 3 dead over here. No survivors. We should go. Jack didn't move. Couldn't, somehow. The woman was still looking at him. Not pleading. Not begging. Just waiting. You speak English, Jack said. It came out flat, almost accusatory. Better than you'd think. A ghost of something that might have been a smile. Now are you going to shoot me, or stop the bleeding? The question hung between them. Every rule Jack had been taught said to walk away. She was the enemy. This was war. You didn't have time for enemy wounded when your own guys might need you. But she was also a medic. Like Doc Morrison back with the platoon. Like the corpsmen who'd pulled wounded Marines out of hell and paid for it with their own lives. Like the people who saved lives instead of taking them. Shit, Jack muttered. He lowered the rifle. Miller. Wilson again, closer now. What you got? Survivor, Jack called back. Medical personnel. She's hit bad. Wilson appeared through the snow, haze right behind him. Both men stared at the woman, then at Jack like he'd lost his mind. She's Chinese, Wilson said, stating the obvious. I can see that. So we what? Take her prisoner? She's bleeding out, Jack said. Won't make it an hour without treatment. Not our problem, man. Wilson's voice wasn't cruel, just practical. We got orders. 15 minutes, remember? Jack knew Wilson was right. Tactically, strategically, by every measure that mattered in a war, leaving her made sense. But something in her eyes stopped him. She's a medic, Jack said quietly. So she's trying to save people. Same as we are. She's trying to save them. Wilson gestured at the dead Chinese soldiers. While they're trying to kill us. In case you forgot. Jack hadn't forgotten. Couldn't forget. But he also couldn't walk away. Go back, he told Wilson. Tell the sergeant I found a survivor. Need 5 minutes. Jack. 5 minutes. Please. Wilson and Hayes exchanged looks. Finally, Wilson shook his head. Your funeral. You got 5, then we're gone. They disappeared back into the snow. Jack knelt beside the woman. Up close, the damage was worse than he'd thought. Left thigh torn open, probably from shrapnel. Bleeding badly. Her face was gray, lips blue. Classic shock. Without treatment, she'd be dead before sunset. This is gonna hurt, Jack said, shrugging off his pack. I know. Her voice was weaker now. Just do it right. The femoral artery you need to compress proximal to the wound. If you don't, I'll exsanguinate in, she took a shaky breath, in approximately 8 to 10 minutes. Jack stared at her. You really are a medic. I really am. Another ghost smile. My father was a surgeon. Trained me from his books. Jack's fingers were already moving, pulling out his aid kit. Sulfa powder. Bandages. Not much, but it was what he had. He worked quickly, the way Doc Morrison had shown him in training. Pack the wound. Apply pressure. Secure the bandage. The woman girl really bit down on her lip hard enough to draw blood, but she didn't scream. Just watched him work with those dark, intelligent eyes. What's your name? Jack asked, trying to distract her from the pain. A pause. Does it matter? Yeah, it does. Another pause, longer. Like she was deciding something. Lee Rin, she finally said. But, you can call me Rin. Jack Miller. Hello, Jack Miller. Her breathing was becoming more regular. The bandage was holding. Thank you for not killing me. Don't thank me yet. Jack sat back on his heels, looking at what he'd done. The bleeding had slowed, but she'd lost a lot. Too much. And even with the bandage, she wasn't going to last long out here in the cold. He should go. His 5 minutes were probably up. But if he left her here, she'd freeze to death before she bled out. Can you walk? He asked, knowing the answer. No. Can you crawl? Maybe. Not far. Jack looked around. There maybe 200 meters away, he could see the ruins of a house. Roof half collapsed, walls pocked with bullet holes. But it was shelter. Better than nothing. He made a decision he'd probably regret. I'm going to move you, he said. It's going to hurt like hell. I know. And when we get there, you stay quiet. You understand? If my guys find out I'm helping you, it's my ass. Rin looked at him for a long moment. Why are you doing this? Jack didn't have a good answer. Because, he said finally, you're just a medic. And I can't just leave you. He stood, slinging his rifle across his back, then bent and carefully as possible lifted her. She was light. Too light. All bone and determination. Rin made a small sound of pain but bit it back. Jack started walking toward the ruined house, each step an effort in the deep snow. Behind them, the truck continued to burn. Ahead, somewhere in the white, his platoon was waiting. And Jack Miller carried an enemy soldier toward shelter. Breaking about 15 regulations and possibly committing treason, because some choices you made with your gut, not your head. Because she'd said she saved lives. And somehow, impossibly, Jack believed her. 4 hours
We're not so
had
different,
passed.
are we?
Rin lay in the snow where Jack had left her, inside the ruins of what had once been someone's home. 3 walls still stood. Part of a roof provided shelter from the worst of the wind. It wasn't much, but it was more than the open mountainside. She'd stopped shivering an hour ago. That was bad. She knew it was bad. The shivering was the body's attempt to generate warmth. When it stopped, it meant the core temperature had dropped too far. Hypothermia was settling in, stage by stage, shutting her down. Her fingers had no feeling. Her toes were probably frostbitten. The wound in her leg had stopped hurting, which meant either the bleeding had slowed or she was too far gone to feel it anymore. Rin wasn't sure which. Is this dying? She wondered distantly. Her father had described it once. Death isn't pain, he'd said. It's silence. When everything becomes quiet, that's when it's over. It was quiet now. No gunfire. No aircraft. Just the soft whisper of falling snow and the wind singing through the broken walls. Rin closed her eyes. She thought about her father. About the house in Pyongyang where she'd grown up, reading by candlelight while he worked late at the hospital. About the last time she'd seen him, being led away by men with red armbands who wouldn't meet his eyes. He'd looked back at her once. Smiled, like he was reassuring her that everything would be fine. It hadn't been fine. Maybe she'd see him soon. Maybe death was just walking into another room where the people you'd lost were waiting. Rin heard footsteps. She opened her eyes, not sure if she was hallucinating. A shape approached through the snow. One person, moving carefully. Chinese or American, she thought. Friend or enemy? Then she realized it didn't matter. She was past caring. The figure knelt beside her. Brushed snow from her face. You're still alive. English. American. It was him. The soldier who'd bandaged her. Jack. He'd come back. You came back, Rin whispered. Her voice barely worked. Jack didn't answer. Just started checking her over with hands that moved efficiently despite the cold. He touched her forehead, her neck, felt for a pulse at her wrist. Jesus, you're freezing, he muttered. He pulled a canteen from his pack, unscrewed it, held it to her lips. Water. Rin drank, though swallowing hurt. The liquid was shockingly cold going down, but her body needed it. Can you move? Jack asked. Rin tried. Her leg wouldn't cooperate. No. She watched him think. Saw the moment he made up his mind about something. Okay. This is what's going to happen. I'm going to get you warm, stable. Then I need to go back to my unit before they list me as a deserter. You should go now, Rin said. I'll be dead by morning. I know. He was already pulling items from his pack. That's not happening on my watch. Why? The question came out before she could stop it. Why do you care? Jack paused, a wool blanket in his hands. He looked at her for a long moment. I don't know, he said honestly. But I looked at you back there and I didn't see a soldier. I just saw someone in pain. He draped the blanket over her, then pulled out more his shelter half, meant to be combined with another Marine's to make a tent. He rigged it against the wall, creating a crude windbreak. This'll keep the worst of it off you, he said. Not great, but better than nothing. Rin watched him work. His movements were practiced, economical. A man who knew how to survive in the field. You're risking a lot, she said. For an enemy. Yeah, well. Jack struck a match, lit a small can of sterno. The flame guttered in the wind but held. Maybe I'm bad at following orders. He positioned the tiny heat source carefully, then pulled out a C-ration can. Began opening it with his P38 can opener. You need calories, heat, fluids. Can you keep food down? I think so. Good. Because this stuff is terrible, and I don't want you wasting it. Despite everything, Rin almost smiled. Jack heated the ration over the sterno, then handed her the can. Some kind of hash. It smelled awful and tasted worse, but it was warm, and her body needed it. She ate slowly while Jack checked her bandage. His hands were gentle but sure. Bleeding stopped, he said. That's good. But the wound's dirty. Without antibiotics. He trailed off. Infection, Rin finished. Yes, I know. I've got sulfa powder. Already used some. It might help. It might, Rin agreed. She knew the odds, though. Knew what happened to wounds like this in the field. Even in a proper hospital, even with her father's skill, sometimes infection won. Silence fell between them. Not uncomfortable. Just two people sitting in the ruins while a war happened around them. Why'd you learn English? Jack asked finally. Rin considered the question. My father taught me. He was a surgeon. Studied in Japan, learned English from medical texts. He said a doctor should speak many languages. That medicine has no borders. Smart man. He was. Past tense. Before they took him. Jack's hands stilled on the bandage. Took him? The people's courts. After liberation. He was. Bourgeois. Educated under the old regime. They said he was an enemy of the revolution. Rin kept her voice flat, clinical. Like reporting symptoms. They executed him 3 years ago. Jesus. I'm sorry. It wasn't your fault. No, but Jack struggled for words. That's not right. Killing someone for being educated. No, Rin agreed quietly. It's not. She looked at him then, really looked. His face was young but already worn. The kind of tired that went bone deep. Dark circles under blue-gray eyes that had seen too much. You don't want to be here, she said. It wasn't a question. Jack laughed, but there was no humor in it. Does anyone? I'm a farmer. Was a farmer. I grew corn in Iowa. Then I got drafted and now I'm in Korea freezing my ass off, and half the time I don't even know what we're fighting for. Freedom, Rin said, repeating what she'd heard in propaganda. Democracy. Maybe. They tell us that. Just like they probably tell you something different. Equality. Liberation. A new world. And you believed it? Rin was quiet for a long time. I wanted to. After my father. I thought if I fought for the revolution, his death would mean something. That maybe I could help build the world he believed in. And now? Now I mostly just try to keep people from dying. She met his eyes. Like you. Jack nodded slowly. Yeah, same. Another silence. Outside, the wind picked up. Snow began falling harder. I need to go soon, Jack said. Before dark. My platoon's going to be asking questions. I understand. But I'll come back. Tonight. Bring more food, see how you're doing. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. I'm going to anyway. Rin didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know how to process kindness from someone she was supposed to hate. Jack, she said carefully, what happens if they find out? Your people. That you're helping me. Court-martial, probably. Maybe firing squad, depending on how they want to see it. Then don't come back. It's too dangerous. Jack stood, brushing snow from his uniform. I'll be careful. And you, he pointed at the sterno can, still burning, keep that going as long as you can. Ration it. It's all you've got for heat. I will. He shouldered his pack, picked up his rifle. Looked down at her one more time. Your name's Rin, right? Yes, Rin. He said it carefully, like learning a new word. I'm Jack. I know. You told me. Right. Well. He seemed uncertain how to end this. Don't die, okay? I'm going through a lot of trouble here. Despite herself, Rin smiled. I'll try not to. Jack nodded once, then turned and disappeared into the snow. Rin sat in the silence he left behind. An American soldier had saved her life. Had given her warmth, food, hope. Had risked everything for an enemy he had no reason to help. She didn't understand it. Didn't understand him. But as she sat in the ruins, wrapped in his blanket, warmed by his heat source, sustained by his rations, Rin felt something shift inside her. The propaganda had taught her that Americans were monsters. Imperialists. Destroyers. But Jack Miller wasn't a monster. He was just a person, like her. And that simple truth was more dangerous than any weapon. Because if he was a person, then maybe all of them were. And if all of them were people, then what were they really fighting for? Rin pulled the blanket tighter and stared into the small flame of the sterno can. Outside, snow continued to fall. And somewhere in the white, Jack Miller was walking back to his war, carrying a secret that could get him killed. She hoped he'd be safe. She hoped he'd come back. And she hated herself a little for hoping. Night fell hard. The fire still burned barely. Jack had been feeding it twigs one at a time, keeping it alive while Rin slept under the blankets he'd left. Her breathing was uneven, shallow. Every few minutes she'd shiver violently, then go still again. Fever. Jack knew the signs. Had seen them enough times on wounded Marines waiting for evac that never came. The wound was getting infected, just like they'd both known it would. He pressed the back of his hand to her forehead. Hot. Too hot. Rin. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then slowly finding him. Fever? She asked. Yeah. She exhaled slowly. As a medic, she knew what that meant. Knew the odds without antibiotics. Without a hospital. Without anything but a half-frozen Marine and a will to survive. You need medicine, Jack said. I know. Her voice was thin. But where will you get it? Your unit won't give you medicine for an enemy. Jack said nothing because she was right. But he wasn't giving up. He dug through his aid kit again. Not much left. Most of it he'd already used on her. But at the bottom there, a small envelope of sulfa powder. Last one. This might help, he said, tearing it open. He mixed it with water from his canteen, creating a bitter suspension. Held it to her lips. Rin drank without hesitation. Made a face at the taste but got every drop down. Thank you. Jack just nodded. Started checking the wound again. Had to change the dressing. It needed to be done, but he knew it would hurt like hell. This is going to hurt, he warned. I know. Just do it right. She set her jaw, preparing. Jack worked as gently as he could, but there was no gentle way to do this. He peeled away the old bandage, crusted with dried blood. The wound beneath was swollen, red radiating from the edges. Definitely infected. He poured the last of his iodine over it. Rin went rigid. Didn't make a sound, but her whole body locked up with pain. Jack saw her bite down on her lip hard enough that he worried she'd draw blood. You're tough, he said quietly. She managed a weak smile. Had to be. Women aren't supposed to be soldiers. Why'd you join? Jack kept working as he talked, wrapping fresh bandages from his dwindling supply. Conversation helped. Kept them both focused on something other than what his hands were doing. Rin looked at the ceiling or what was left of it. I believed, she said simply. Inequality. In a world where no one starves. Where everyone has enough. She paused. Took a breath. My father died because he was educated. They called him bourgeois. Counter-revolutionary. I thought, if I fought for the revolution, his death would mean something. That I could help build the world he wanted. Jack's hands stilled. I'm sorry. Don't be. It wasn't your fault. No, but he struggled to find words. That's not right. What they did to him. No, Rin agreed quietly. It wasn't. She turned her head to look at him. What about you? Why are you here? Jack tied off the bandage before answering. Got drafted. Didn't have a choice. But you came back for me. That was a choice. She had him there. I don't know why, Jack admitted. Maybe because my grandpa taught me that people matter more than flags. Rin studied his face in the firelight. Young but already aged. Eyes that had seen too much. Your grandfather sounds wise. He is. Was. Still is, I mean. Jack corrected himself. He fought in the First World War. Came back different. Quieter. Doesn't talk about it much. But he told me one thing. What? Nations fight wars. But people just try to survive them. Rin let those words settle. He's right, she said softly. I've sewn too many bodies back together. Boys younger than us. They all said the same thing before they died. They wanted to go home. Jack nodded. Yeah, we all do. Silence fell. Outside, the wind howled. Inside, the tiny fire crackled. Not much warmth, but enough. Rin spoke first. Jack. Yeah? Why do you think we're here? Really? Jack thought about it. Actually thought, instead of just repeating what he'd been told. I don't know. They told us we're fighting for freedom. Stopping communism. Saving South Korea. He shook his head. Sounded important when they said it. I was told I'm fighting for equality. Stopping imperialism. Liberating Korea. Rin's voice carried something that might have been irony. But here we are. You saving me. Me trying not to die. Jack laughed a short, bitter sound. Doesn't make sense, does it? No, it doesn't. Despite the pain, despite everything, Rin smiled too. Sometimes you had to laugh or you'd lose your mind. Jack added another stick to the fire. My grandpa said something else. What? He said wars are fought by old men who send young men to die. And the young men never ask why until it's too late. Rin absorbed this, turned it over in her mind. I'm asking now, she said. Me too. They looked at each other across the small fire. Enemy and enemy, communist and capitalist, Chinese and American. But in this moment, in this ruined house, those labels felt hollow. Here, there were just two people. Both far from home, both trying to survive, both starting to question what they'd been told to believe. Rin's eyes grew heavy. The medicine, the warmth, the exhaustion, all of it pulling her toward sleep. Jack. Yeah? If I die, tell them I tried. Tell them I saved people. Jack's chest tightened. You're not going to die. How do you know? Because I won't let you. It was a promise he had no business making. No way to keep. But he made it anyway. Rin smiled faintly. Stubborn. Yeah, like you. Her eyes closed. But her breathing evened out, became more regular. The medicine was taking effect. Jack sat watching her, making sure she kept breathing, making sure the fire didn't die. Outside, snow fell endlessly. Morning came slowly, gray light filtering through the broken roof. Jack looked out through a gap in the wall. The storm had eased. The sky was lighter. A new day. Would it be different from yesterday? The war would continue. People would keep dying. But in this small shelter, one life had survived the night. Saved by enemy hands. That had to mean something. Jack looked back at Rin. She was sleeping peacefully now, the first real rest she'd had since he found her. He smiled slightly, made himself a promise. He'd keep her alive, somehow, even if the world said he shouldn't. Even if it got him killed. Because Jack Miller had grown up on a farm where you didn't let things die if you could help it. Where every life mattered, whether it was a calf struggling to be born or a woman bleeding out in the snow. His grandfather had taught him that. People matter more than flags. Jack fed another stick to the fire and settled in to wait. The war could wait a little longer. Right now, he had a patient to keep alive.
When
3
the fire
days
goes
passed.
out, the darkness
The
is the
fever
same for
broke
both
on the
of us.
second night.
I always
Jack
believed the
had
darkness
stayed
was
through the worst of it, sponging her forehead. With snow melt, forcing water down her throat when she could swallow, just sitting beside her when he could do nothing else. Now Rin could sit up. Could stay awake for more than a few minutes at a time. The wound was still bad, still infected, but she was fighting it. Winning, maybe. Jack came back each night. Always after dark. Always careful. He'd bring rations, check her dressings, keep the fire going for an hour or two before disappearing back into the night. His platoon thought he was on extended patrol. Security sweeps. It was a lie that would only hold so long. But for now, it held. The third night, Rin was sitting up when he arrived, wrapped in his blanket, hands extended toward the small fire he'd built. Jack pulled out 2 ration cans. Split them evenly. You need to eat more, he said, handing her the larger portion. You're still weak. Rin shook her head. You need it too. You've been awake for 3 nights. I'm fine. Liar. But she smiled when she said it. Jack smiled back. Despite the exhaustion, despite everything, seeing her smile made something in his chest ease. They ate in companionable silence. The food was terrible congealed hash that tasted like tin, but hunger made everything palatable. Jack, Rin said, breaking the quiet. Yeah? When this is over, what will you do? Jack chewed thoughtfully. Go home, I guess. Back to the farm. Help my grandpa with the harvest. You like farming? I don't know. Never really thought about it. It's just what we do. What my family's always done. Rin nodded. I understand. My father wanted me to be a doctor. I never asked myself if I wanted it. I just became one. Or tried to. Do you regret it? She considered the question seriously. No. I like helping people. Saving lives. A pause. But sometimes I wonder, if I'd chosen differently, would I be here? Would that be better? I don't know. She stared into the fire, and Jack saw something in her expression. A weight. A weariness that went beyond the physical. I've seen so many people die, Jack. Young people. Almost children. They all believed in something, the revolution, their country, their families. But in the end, they just wanted to live. Her voice dropped. And I couldn't save them all. Jack reached out, took her hand. It was cold despite the fire, but steady. It's not your fault. I know. But knowing doesn't make it easier. No, Jack agreed. It doesn't. He thought about his grandfather. About the nightmares that still woke the old man 20 years after the Argonne Forest. My grandpa has bad dreams, Jack said. From his war. He wakes up screaming sometimes. My grandma holds him until it stops. Does it help? I think so. He says, remembering is the price we pay for surviving. Rin absorbed this. Then we'll pay a high price. Yeah, we will. The fire popped. A log shifted. Neither of them let go of each other's hands. Jack, Rin said quietly. Do you hate me? He looked at her, surprised. What? No. Why would I? Because I'm your enemy. Because I fight for communism. Because I'm Chinese. I don't see an enemy, Jack said simply. I see Rin. Her eyes glistened. But your country says I'm wrong. That what I believe is evil. Maybe they do. Jack squeezed her hand. But I don't think you're evil. I think you're trying to make the world better. Same as me. But we're on different sides. Are we? Jack leaned forward. Really think about it. You want people to be equal. I want people to be free. Aren't those kind of the same thing? Rin went still. I never thought of it that way. Me neither. Not until now. Jack fed another stick to the fire. But I know this. Right now, in this room, there are no sides. Just you and me. And I'd rather have you alive than dead. Doesn't matter what flag you're supposed to carry. A tear slipped down Rin's cheek. That's the most dangerous thing anyone has ever said to me. Why? Because if I believe it. Her voice shook. Everything I've been taught falls apart. Jack met her eyes. Maybe it should. They sat in the weight of that statement. The fire crackled. Outside, the wind sang its endless song. Rin didn't pull her hand away. Neither did Jack. I was taught to hate you, she whispered. They told us Americans destroy everything. That you're monsters who kill children. And now? Now I don't know. She looked at him. Really looked at him. You saved me. You stayed with me when you could have left. You're kind. Her voice broke slightly. How can I hate someone who's kind? Jack didn't have an answer. Just kept holding her hand. The night deepened around them. Snow began falling again, soft and steady. The war seemed very far away. If we survive this, Rin said slowly, if we go back to our lives. Will you remember me? Yes. No hesitation. Will you remember me as an enemy? No. Jack was certain. I'll remember you as Rin. The person who made me question everything I thought I knew. She smiled then. Sad but genuine. You did the same for me, Jack. You made me realize. Maybe people are more important than ideologies. They sat together in the firelight. Two people from opposite sides of the world, opposite sides of a war, finding common ground in the simple act of being human together. It was dangerous, revolutionary in a way no political theory could match. Because if they could see each other as people, then the whole machinery of war started to crack. If the enemy had a name, a face, a story, if the enemy was kind, was scared, was human, then how could you keep fighting? How could any of them? Jack, Rin said. Yeah? I'm glad you found me. Me too. And in that moment, in a ruined house on a frozen mountain. While two massive armies maneuvered around them, two people who should have been enemies became something else. Friends, maybe. Or something more. Something that had no name in the language of war. Only in the language of being human. The fourth night. Rin could walk now. Limping badly, leaning on a stick Jack had found, but walking. He watched her move slowly around the small shelter, testing her strength. It should have made him happy. She was healing, getting stronger. But it also meant she could leave. Could go back to her unit. Could disappear from his life as suddenly as she'd entered it. Better? He asked. Rin nodded, settling beside him. Much better. Thanks to you. Jack didn't respond, just stared into the fire, lost in thought. Rin had learned to read faces in medical school. Pain had a face. Fear had a face. And this was the face of worry. You're worried, she said. Yeah, about what happens next. It wasn't a question. She knew. This couldn't last. This fragile peace in their small shelter while the war raged outside. Eventually, they'd have to choose. What do you think will happen? Rin asked. Jack sighed. I don't know. If I take you to my unit, you'll be a prisoner. If I let you go back to yours, I might never see you again. Would that matter? The question hung between them. Jack looked at her. Yes, it would. Rin's heart stumbled. She knew what he was saying. What they were both feeling but hadn't named. Jack, we can't. I know. He cut her off gently. I know we can't. We're enemies. Different sides. Different worlds. But, he trailed off, unable to finish. Rin finished for him. But it doesn't feel that way anymore. No, it doesn't. The fire crackled in the silence. Do you believe in this war, Jack? Rin asked. He took a long time to answer. I used to think I did. They told us we're fighting for freedom. For people who can't fight for themselves. It sounded noble. And now? Now I'm not sure what freedom means. Is it freedom if people are dying? Is it freedom if we're told who to hate? Rin nodded slowly. I felt the same. I believed in equality. A world where no one is left behind. Where everyone has enough. She paused. But I've seen what it costs. The purges. The fear. My father died for being educated. Is that equality? Jack took her hand. I'm sorry. You didn't do it. But she didn't pull away. Jack, what if we're both wrong? What if there's no right side in this war? He turned that over in his mind. My grandpa said wars aren't about right and wrong. They're about power. And young people die for old people's power. He's right, Rin said quietly. We're just pieces on a board, moved by people who'll never see a battlefield. Jack stared at the flames. Then what are we fighting for? Rin didn't have an answer. Everything she'd once been certain about now felt unstable. I don't know anymore, she admitted. I thought I knew, but then you saved me. An enemy saved me, and I realized, maybe the enemy isn't who they told me it was. Who is the enemy then? Rin thought carefully. Maybe it's the war itself. The hate, the fear, the things that make us forget we're all human. Jack nodded. Yeah, maybe. Comfortable silence settled over them. Jack, Rin said, if the war ended tomorrow, what would you want? He didn't answer right away. Really considered it. I'd want to go home. See my grandpa, work the farm, live quietly. He looked at her. And I'd want you to be safe. Alive, happy. Rin's eyes widened. Even though we're enemies, we're not enemies. The certainty in his voice surprised even him. Not anymore. Maybe we never were. Nations fight, Rin. But we don't have to. She would remember those words. Carry them with her. That's dangerous thinking, she said softly. I know. Jack smiled. But it's the truth. Rin smiled too. Sad and warm at once. If someone hears us talking like this, they'll call us traitors, Jack finished. Yeah, probably. And they'd be right, wouldn't they? Jack shook his head. No. Traitors betray their people. We're not betraying anyone. We're just choosing to see each other as human. Rin looked at him. Really saw him. The honesty in his eyes. You're a good person, Jack. So are you, Rin. The fire flickered between them. And then Rin said it. The thing she'd been feeling but hadn't dared name. I think I'm falling in love with you. Jack's breath stopped. That's impossible, he said. I know. Rin's voice was steady despite the tears gathering. But I can't help it. You saved my life. You stayed with me. You see me, not as an enemy, not as Chinese, just me. Jack's hand tightened around hers. I see you, Rin. And I. He couldn't finish, but his eyes said everything. Rin smiled through tears. We can't have this, can we? No, Jack said honestly. The world won't let us. Then what do we do? I don't know. He pulled her closer. But right now, in this moment, can we just be? Not soldiers, not enemies, just Jack and Rin? Rin nodded. Yes, just for tonight. They leaned into each other. The fire burned. Outside, the war continued. But here, in this small space, there was peace. Impossible love, the kind the world forbids. But for this moment they were free. Free to feel, free to hope, free to love even if only for one night. Because some things transcend flags and borders and ideologies. Some things are simply human. And love, real love, the kind that sees past uniforms and languages and politics, was the most human thing of all. Jack held Rin close. She rested her head against his shoulder. And for a few stolen hours, the war didn't exist. There was only warmth, only connection, only two people who'd found each other in the worst place, at the worst time, and decided that somehow, against all logic, it mattered. That they mattered. More than the war. More than the sides. More than everything. The fifth morning brought reality crashing back. Jack had gone out at dawn to scout for firewood.
I won't
He
forget.
moved carefully along the ridgeline, staying low when he saw them. American troops. A full company, maybe more, moving through the valley below. Not his unit, but close enough. The Marines were pushing into the area. Which meant the Chinese would be here soon too. The shelter wasn't safe anymore. Jack hurried back, his mind racing. Rin, we need to move. She looked up from where she'd been rebandaging her leg. Saw his face and understood immediately. They're coming? Yeah, my side. We can't stay here. Rin stood slowly, testing her weight on the injured leg. She could walk, but not well. And definitely not fast. Where will we go? Jack didn't have an answer. Where could they go? Taking her to the Marines meant captivity for her. Letting her return to the Chinese lines meant he'd never see her again. If she even made it that far. I don't know, he admitted. Rin looked at him steadily. Made a decision. Jack, you should go back to your unit. What? No. You've been gone too long. They'll think you deserted. I don't care. You should care. Her voice was firm. If they find you with me, you'll be court-martialed. Maybe executed for treason. And if I leave you? You'll die out here. Maybe. But you'll live. Jack shook his head. That's not living. That's just surviving. They stared at each other. Time running out. Choices narrowing. Then Jack's radio crackled to life. He'd turned it off days ago. Forgotten it was even in his pack. But someone must have kicked it, switched it back on. Static, then voices. All units, this is command. Major airstrike planned for grid 472. Commence at 0600 tomorrow. Chinese positions near Hagaru-ri. Repeat, major airstrike on Chinese positions, Hagaru-ri area, 0600 hours tomorrow. Jack's face went white. What is it? Rin asked. He looked at her. This was classified information. Military intelligence. Telling her would be treason. Real treason, not the technical kind. But Rin wasn't the enemy. Not anymore. Airstrike, he said quietly. Tomorrow at dawn. Near Hagaru-ri. Your lines. Rin's breath caught. Hagaru-ri. That's where my unit is. The field hospital. Jack gripped her shoulders. If you go back, you'll die. You'll be right in the middle of it. Rin knew. Of course she knew. But there were wounded men there. Men who couldn't move. Medics like her. I have to warn them. Rin, you can barely walk. You won't make it in time. I have to try. Her voice shook, but her resolve didn't. Jack tried to hold her back. If you go, I'll lose you. And if I don't, I'll lose myself. She looked him in the eyes. You saved me, Jack. You taught me that people matter. That humanity matters. How can I let those people die when I can save them? Jack had no answer. Because she was right. It was the same reason he'd saved her in the first place. Because people mattered. There has to be another way, he said desperately. There isn't. Rin's voice was gentle. We both know it. The wind howled outside. Then I'm going with you. What? No. If you're going, I'm going. Jack's jaw set. That stubborn look she'd come to know. Jack, that's suicide. They'll shoot you on sight. And they'll shoot you too if you can't run fast enough. He grabbed his pack. At least together we have a chance. Tears spilled down Rin's cheeks. Why? Why would you do this? Jack pulled her into his arms. Because I love you. And I'd rather die with you than live without you. Rin cried against his chest. Quietly. Deeply. This is insane, she whispered. I know. We'll probably both die. I know. And it won't change anything. The war will go on. I know. Jack held her tighter. But maybe one act of humanity is enough. Maybe saving those people is enough. Rin pulled back. wiped her eyes. Okay, she said. Together. Together. Jack pulled off his dog tags. The metal chain cold in his hand. He pressed them into her palm. If I don't make it, keep this. Remember me. Rin's fingers closed around the tags. Then she unwound the scarf from around her neck, the red silk one, the only thing left from her mother. She wrapped it around Jack's neck. If I don't make it, keep this. Remember me. They stood facing each other. Jack. Yeah? I love you. It was the first time she'd said it clearly. Without qualification. Jack smiled. Sad but real. I love you too, Rin. They kissed. Soft and desperate and beautiful. Then they stepped out into the snow. The blizzard hit them immediately. Sky dark. Path invisible. But they were together. Two people from opposite sides, now walking the same road. Toward death, maybe. But without regret. The night swallowed them. And dawn was coming. The last dawn. 15 kilometers through mountain snow. Impossible for Rin's condition. But love makes people attempt impossible things. They walked through the night. Jack supporting Rin when she stumbled. Rin pushing forward when her body screamed to stop. 4 hours until the strike. 3 hours. 2. They didn't talk much. Saved their breath for walking. But sometimes their eyes would meet, and that was enough. 1 hour left. Lights appeared through the snow. Hagaru-ri, the Chinese field hospital. We're close, Rin breathed. Relief. And dread. Because close meant goodbye. Jack stopped. Rin, I can't go further. She knew. American soldier approaching Chinese lines meant death. I know. Can you make it from here? She judged the distance. 1 kilometer, maybe. 30 minutes limping. Yes. Jack turned to face her. Fixed every detail in his memory. When you get there, warn them. Tell them to scatter. Mountains. Caves. Anywhere. I will. He took her face in his hands. My name is Jack Miller. Iowa. Miller Farm. Anyone in town knows it. Tears streamed down Rin's face. My name is Lee Rin. I will find you. They kissed one last time. Deep and desperate, trying to make it last forever. Then Rin turned away. Started walking. Rin. She looked back. Find me, Jack said. I will, she promised. And disappeared into the snow. Jack stood watching until she was gone. Just white. Just wind. Then he turned the other way. Toward his own lines. The sky was lightening. Dawn approaching. He wrapped Rin's scarf tighter. Felt her warmth still in the fabric. And walked. To live. To hope. To maybe, somehow, see her again. But fate had other plans. In the distance, he heard them. Bombers. Coming. The night was endless. Jack and Rin pushed through the blizzard, snow slashing at their faces like razors. Rin limped badly, her legs screaming with each step. Jack supported her weight, half carrying her at times. 15 kilometers to Hagaru-ri. Impossible distance for someone in her condition. But they kept moving. How much time do we have? Rin gasped, breath coming hard. Jack checked his watch. 4 hours. Maybe less. Not enough. Nowhere near enough. But it was all they had. An hour passed. Then another. Rin stumbled, nearly went down. Jack caught her. Rin, you okay? Just tired. Her face was gray with exhaustion and pain. Jack lowered her to the snow. Rest. Just for a minute. We don't have time. If you collapse, we'll have even less. She couldn't argue. Sat there trying to catch her breath while Jack knelt beside her, taking her frozen hands in his. Rin. Yeah? If we don't make it. Don't. She cut him off. Don't say it. I have to. Jack looked at her. If something happens to me, I want you to know. Meeting you changed everything. Tears gathered in her eyes. Jack. I mean it. Before you, I was just going through the motions. Surviving. But you made me feel human again. He squeezed her hands. You made me remember why life matters. Rin tried not to cry but failed. You did the same for me. I was so tired, Jack. Tired of war. Tired of death. But you gave me hope. She touched his face with trembling fingers. You showed me that even in hell, there can be kindness. Jack covered her hand with his own. Promise me something. What? If you survive and I don't. Live. Really live. Don't just survive. Rin shook her head. I won't survive without you. You will. You're stronger than you think. His voice was firm. And I want you to. I want you to go home. See your family if you can. Be a doctor. Save lives. Be happy. Rin pulled him close. How can I be happy without you? You'll find a way. People do. He held her while she cried silently into his shoulder. Promise me, Rin. A long silence. Then, quietly, I promise. But you have to promise me too. What? If I die and you survive? Remember me, not as an enemy, not as a Chinese soldier. Just as Rin, the woman who loved you. Jack's voice broke. I will. Always. They held each other while the wind howled around them. Two people trying to steal a few more moments before the world tore them apart. Time passed. They stood, kept walking. 2 more hours through the endless white. Then lights. Distant. Flickering through the storm. Hagaru-ri. Rin's face showed relief and anguish both. Close now. Which meant goodbye was close too. Jack stopped. Rin. I can't go any further. She knew. Of course she knew. An American approaching Chinese lines would be shot without question. I know. Can you make it from here? She judged the distance. About a kilometer. 30 minutes, even limping. Yes. Jack's hands went to her shoulders. When you get there, warn them. Tell them to scatter. Hide in the mountains. Caves. Anywhere the bombs won't reach. I will. He pulled his dog tags over his head. The ones he'd given her before, now giving them again. Metal cold in the freezing air. Keep this. But, please, I want you to have it. He pressed them into her hand. The metal warming against her palm. If we survive, find me. Iowa. Miller Farm. Anyone in town will know where it is. Rin closed her fingers around the tags. And if we don't? Jack smiled. Sad but genuine. Then at least we tried. At least we chose love over hate. Rin smiled through tears. Yeah, we did. She unwound the scarf from her neck. The red silk, her mother's last gift. Her hands shook as she wrapped it around his throat. Keep warm. And live, Jack. Please live. Jack accepted the scarf. Felt the silk, still carrying her warmth, her scent. I'll try. They stood facing each other. Memorizing. This might be the last time. I love you, Rin. I love you, Jack. The kiss was deep. Desperate. Trying to hold infinity in a moment. Then Rin turned away. Started walking toward the lights. Rin. She looked back. My name is Jack Miller. Find me. She smiled through tears. My name is Lee Rin. I will find you. Then the snow swallowed her. Jack stood watching. Watching until even her shadow was gone. Until there was only white and wind and the ache of her absence. He turned the other way. Started walking back toward his own lines. The sky was beginning to lighten. Dawn coming. The red scarf warm around his neck, the only part of him that didn't feel frozen. He walked. 1 foot. Then another. Thinking about Iowa. About his grandfather's farm. About cornfields in summer and Rin's hand in his. About impossible futures that might somehow, against all odds, become real. He'd make it back. Had to. So he could find her again when this was over. So he could keep his promise. The wind picked up. And in the distance, very faint, Jack heard them. Aircraft engines. The bombers were coming early. He started to run. Not away from the sound. Toward it. Toward her. 5:40 a.m. Rin burst into the Chinese field hospital, chest heaving, legs screaming. A sentry raised his rifle, then lowered it in shock. Comrade Lee, where have you been? We thought you were dead. Rin gasped for breath. Bombing. Soon. Everyone needs to scatter. The sentry didn't hesitate. Hit the alarm. Chaos erupted. The field hospital, really just a schoolhouse with the roof blown off, became a frenzy of motion. Medics grabbed wounded. Anyone who could walk started moving toward the mountains. Those who couldn't were carried toward caves. Rin helped despite her exhaustion. Grabbed a litter. Helped load a soldier with a chest wound. Kept moving. Most of the wounded were dispersing. Hiding. They'd survive. She'd done it. Then the radio crackled. 3rd Division Medical Units, emergency deployment to Udom-ni. Americans under heavy assault. Multiple casualties. Udom-ni, where Jack would be heading. Rin froze. She was a medic. She had orders. 9th Squad, Comrade Lee report. Moving out. 600 a.m. Udom-ni Ridge. The Marines were surrounded. 3 Chinese divisions pressing from all sides. Gunfire constant, deafening. Jack was dragging a wounded Marine behind cover when someone shouted. Miller, leave him. We gotta move. I'm not leaving anyone behind. Jack got the man to safety, then turned back. Another Marine down in the open. Exposed. Bullets kicked up snow around him. Jack ran low, grabbed the man, started pulling. Same moment, Rin arrived at the Chinese lines with her medical team. Wounded everywhere. She dropped to her knees beside a soldier with a gut wound, started working. The firefight intensified. Americans pushing back hard. A Chinese officer shouted to his radio operator. Call for mortar support. Send coordinates. Rin's hands stopped. Mortars. Here, where both sides were fighting at close quarters. Everyone would die. She looked up toward the American lines. That's when she saw it. A figure in Marine fatigues. Red scarf around his neck. Her mother's scarf. Jack. Her heart stopped. Jack was lifting the wounded Marine when he saw movement from the Chinese position. Someone running. A woman. Medical uniform. That face. Rin? Impossible. She should be at Hagaru-ri, safe, hidden from the bombing. Rin was sprinting through the crossfire, screaming in Chinese. Stop. Don't shoot. But her voice was lost in the gunfire. She ran toward him. Jack. No. Jack saw the rifle behind her. Chinese soldier, aiming at him. He dropped the wounded Marine. Started running. Toward her. The rifle cracked. Jack threw himself in front of Rin. His body shielding hers. 3 impacts. Chest. Abdomen. Shoulder. The world slowed. Jack. Rin's scream cut through everything. He fell. She caught him. They went down together in the snow. No, no, no. Jack, please. Rin laid him down. Her hands already moving, assessing. Too much blood. Too many wounds. Jack looked up at her. Managed a smile. You're alive. Don't talk. Save your strength. I can fix this. I can. Her hands were shaking. She pulled bandages from her pack, tried to pack the wounds. But there were too many. Blood everywhere. Jack caught her wrist. Gentle. Rin. It's okay. No, it's not okay. You can't leave me. Tears fell on his face. Jack raised his hand. Touched her cheek. So cold. But his touch was warm. I'm sorry. Couldn't keep my promise. Don't say that. We'll go to Iowa. Together. You promised, remember? Jack shook his head slightly. You go. Live. Be happy. I can't be happy without you. You will. You're strong. His voice was fading. I love you, Rin. I love you too. Please. Please don't go. She gripped his hand. Held on like she could anchor him to life through sheer will. Jack's eyes stayed on her face. Full of love. Full of peace. Then slowly, gently, they closed. Jack? Jack. Rin shook him. Nothing. His hand went slack in hers. No. Please. No. She pressed her ear to his chest. Silence. No heartbeat. No breath. Gone. Rin swallowed her scream. Collapsed over him. Sobbed without sound, deep and wrenching. A whistle in the sky. Mortars. Rin looked up. Death falling from above. She pulled Jack's body close. Retrieved his dog tags from her pocket, the ones he'd given her. Pressed them to her chest. I'll come with you, Jack. You promised we'd be together. The first shell hit. Ground shook. Rin held Jack's hand. Wouldn't let go. I love you. I'll always love you. The second shell came down. Light exploded. Sound disappeared. Silence. Snow began to fall. Soft. Gentle. Covering 2 bodies in the snow. Jack and Rin. Enemy and enemy. But in the end, just 2 people who loved each other. The snow fell for hours. Covering them. Hiding them. Until they were just shapes beneath white. 2 hands still joined. Dog tags clutched to her chest. Red scarf around his neck. And love. The kind that war couldn't kill. That death couldn't end. That time itself couldn't erase. On the frozen slopes of Chosin. 2 souls left together. Going home. Together. Summer 2020. Chosin Reservoir, Eastern Ridge. A North Korean military training exercise had been underway when the ground gave way. Ancient soil, finally surrendering what it had held for 70 years. The excavation team arrived 3 days later. They worked carefully, brushes and screens, treating the site with the reverence it deserved. War graves were always handled gently, regardless of who's war, who's dead. The pickaxe stopped. Hold, the team leader said quietly. What emerged from the earth wasn't guns or helmets. It was two bodies, young bodies, lying toward each other. The first remains were female. Her ribcage curved as if embracing someone. And there, resting on the bones where her heart had been, American dog tags. Tarnished, green with age, but the stamping was still legible. Miller Jack, 19,274,856. USMC. OPOS. No pref. The tags weren't just lying there. The chain was wound around the finger bones. Held, clutched tight, even in death. One of the excavators drew a sharp breath. Medical personnel, someone said softly. Look at the uniform remnants. A few meters away, the second set of remains. Male. American uniform fragments. Marine Corps. His body angled toward hers. And around the cervical vertebrae red fabric. Silk. Faded but unmistakable. A scarf. Near his ribs, white cloth. Carefully folded. Bandages. Field dressings, the kind a medic would carry. The team leader stood. Removed his helmet. They were together, he said quietly. At the end, no one spoke. The forensic officer examined the remains carefully. Female, approximately 21 to 25 years old. Cause of death blast trauma consistent with mortar strike. Chinese Medical Corps uniform. American dog tags. Male, approximately 20 to 24 years old. Cause of death multiple gunshot wounds and blast trauma. United States Marine Corps uniform. Chinese silk scarf. The officer wrote slowly, both individuals. Kia December 1950. Recovered together. Someone asked quietly, who were they? The dog tags provided one answer. Jack Miller. Serial number 19,274,856. 1st Marine Division, 5th Regiment. Listed as killed in action, December 1950. Remains not recovered. Until now, the woman had no identification. Chinese forces hadn't issued tags to medical personnel, especially women who weren't officially supposed to be soldiers. But the evidence spoke. She'd held his tags to her heart as she died. He'd worn her scarf around his neck. They'd died facing each other. The UN was notified. Then the United States. Then China. At UN headquarters in New York, the report landed on desks in 3 different offices. An American liaison read it twice. A Chinese representative read it in silence. A South Korean observer closed his eyes. In the conference room, they sat together. We should return the remains to their respective countries, the American said. Agreed, said the Chinese representative. Then, after a pause, but they were found together. Silence. Yes, the American said quietly. They were. The Korean spoke. In 70 years. This is what the war left us. 2 young people who saw past what we told them to see. More silence. The American will go home, the Chinese representative said finally. That is proper. But the woman. No identification, the American noted. Technically, she's unknown. But not unloved, the Korean said softly. They looked at each other across the table. 3 nations that had sent young people to kill each other 70 years ago. A proposal, the American said. We bury him with honor at home. And we build a memorial for her. Here, where they were found. For the unknown Chinese medical worker who died trying to save lives. The Chinese representative nodded slowly. I can support this. 6 months later. Iowa. Miller Farm. An old cemetery on a hillside. Cornfields stretching to the horizon. A simple headstone was placed beside 2 others, Robert Miller, World War I veteran, and his wife Helen. Jack Miller, 1928 to 1950. USMC. He chose love over war. His great-nephew, now an old man himself, stood at the grave. Welcome home, Uncle Jack, he whispered. Grandpa Bob waited for you. Waited his whole life. Near the Chosin Reservoir, a small monument was erected. Not grand. Just simple stone. Lirin. Lillian, 1929 to 1950. Unknown soldier. Known love. She saved lives until her last breath. Beneath, in smaller letters, carved in 3 languages. They were found together. Enemies in war. Human in death. People came. Americans. Chinese. Koreans. Veterans who'd fought at Chosin, old men now, leaning on canes. They'd stand quietly, remembering the cold, remembering the fear. remembering that somewhere in all that killing, two people had chosen differently. Students came, taking photos, asking questions. Families came, parents bringing children, trying to explain that war is more complicated than heroes and villains. And always there were flowers. On both graves, thousands of miles apart. People who'd never met Jack or Rin left flowers anyway. Because the story mattered. Because it proved something the world needed to remember. That love is stronger than hate. That humanity runs deeper than ideology. That two people, given a choice between following orders and following their hearts, chose their hearts. And paid for it with everything. A documentary filmmaker interviewed the Korean excavation team leader. "What do you think happened?" she asked. "How did they end up together?" The old man thought carefully. "I think," he said slowly, "that he saved her. And then she saved him. Not from bullets or bombs. From becoming what war wanted them to be. Which was machines that kill without seeing. Without feeling." He shook his head. But they refused. They saw each other as human. And that, he paused, that was the bravest thing they could have done. "Do you think they knew they would die?" "Yes, I think they knew." "Then why?" The old man smiled sadly. "Because some things matter more than survival. Love, compassion, choosing to be human even when the world demands you be a monster." He looked at the photograph of the excavation site. Two skeletons, hands almost touching, separated by death but oriented toward each other. "They died together," he said. "By choice. That tells you everything." Years passed. The monuments remained. The story spread. It was taught in schools. Filmed for television. Written into books. Not as propaganda. Not to glorify war. But as a reminder. That in 1950, on a frozen mountain in Korea, two people from opposite sides of the world met. Were supposed to hate each other. Were ordered to kill each other. Instead, they loved each other. Saved each other. Died for each other. And 70 years later, when the earth finally gave them back, they were still together. Still holding on. Still proving that some bonds are stronger than nations, stronger than ideologies, stronger even than death. On the stone at Chosin, someone had added a line. Not officially. Just carved it in one night and left. The authorities let it stay. It read, "Love has no country. Love has no enemy. Love just is." Below it, in permanent marker, constantly refreshed by visitors. Jack Rin. Together forever. And it was true. In Iowa and in Korea. In memory and in stone. In the lesson they left behind. They were together. Two young people who refused to let war make them into something less than human. Who chose love when the world demanded hate. Who proved that even in the darkest places, even in the worst circumstances, humanity endures. If we let it. If we choose it. The way Jack and Rin chose. On a frozen mountain. 70 years ago. And forever.